Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. You are listening to a podcast by Pastor Eric Deepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. If you enjoy Faith Over Breakfast, we encourage you to rate it on the Apple Podcast app, on Spotify, or Google Play. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. This is Faith Over Breakfast, and my name is Eric Deepen. I'm pastor of the Village Church, and across from me is my good, mad, and committed friend, Andy Littleton, pastor of Mission Church. Hello. And we are kicking off 2024 with Faith Over Breakfast.
Yeah, early on, we claimed to be talking about AI, and it does pop in here and there, but we had a true Faith Over Breakfast conversation, which is two pastors sit down to breakfast, in this case with no food, but some tea, some yogi tea for Eric. And we let the conversation go where it goes, and there's an empty spot at the table for you. You want to slide up a chair?
It's pretty fun.
That's the invitation.
All right, man. Hi.
Hello. Here we are in January. The screen has signs of life on it.
It
looks
does.
Like we're actually
welcome
live.
to 2024. I shall open my notebook.
Oh, wow. Eric's opening a notebook. He must have made
I made some notes.
Some resolutions. He's a new man.
Some Faith Over Breakfast subjects.
I just want to point out that in this new year, I've never seen a notebook before in your hand, nor a cup of morning yogi tea. So this episode brought to you by Yogi Tea, whether they want to or not.
That's right.
And Eric is a man of a notebook.
Well, my wife will tell you, I have hundreds of these. They're just full. The problem with them is they all look the same. So I never know. I need to figure out how to organize them, by month and year and stuff.
The difference is you brought it here. I have one too. It's in my truck.
I never break it out at this meeting. That is true. I had just written down a few notes a while ago about things we could talk about.
Oh, well.
So maybe live.
I love discovering these live on the air.
Live on the air. You can just tell me, give me a yeah, no. Okay, so first one.
Now. Okay.
Discipleship.
No.
Interacting with the digital world.
Okay, maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
Partisan extremism. This is 2024. Might be something to prepare our churches and communities and people who listen.
The word prepare there is key for me. And in that, are we just going to riff on this for a second? Yeah.
Well, just talk about it, help calm the nerves. Maybe talk about a biblical way of looking at politics.
See, here's the problem. Maybe I don't have calm nerves. Maybe I'm about to rage on this microphone.
Maybe we need to calm you.
I'm just saying, here we are live, and I don't know.
Okay.
I feel calm.
You feel calm? Okay, here's the next one.
Just giving you a hard time.
How about AI adoption at church?
Ooh, adopting AI creatures that have been made on AI as a church. So if you want to be a church that's all about adoption, you adopt AI creatures, claim that you're doing all this adoption.
Yeah,
it's actually
very good. Yeah. Okay.
Create your own adoptee.
Is not going anywhere.
The mega church is not going anywhere.
Even with seems to be all this controversy and fall of many mega church of pastor, it's not going anywhere.
That's how it seems, yeah.
Okay. The stable church is a dying breed.
Like cowboy churches, stable church.
Right.
There's one in Tombstone right now.
Yeah, but the stable church is a dying breed.
Yeah, okay. I agree. There aren't a lot of those anymore.
About
got to rein them in, if you know what I mean.
30-somethings
the pastors
are now the core of your church.
Yeah,
I've
noticed.
Okay. Here's some funny ones that I found on the internet. What's with the onstage voice? Maybe we should talk about our onstage versus offstage voice.
What's with the onstage voice?
I listened to you preach. I definitely have an onstage, offstage voice, and I'm a pacer. You're a hands guy.
Oh, yeah, the hands.
You just got a lot of hands.
That's not just on stage, though. I should just say, when we're in social situations, one of my wife's biggest pet peeves is that my hands are she feels in danger.
She wears combat.
She needs a helmet.
And a
face guard, really. That's probably
people struggle to remember everything you say because you say too much.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Eric. Why'd you have to? Well, you're going to say that? You're pointing out my flaws again?
52 sermons well, you and I don't do 52, but our community does 52, and those 52 are full of information. And I, as the pastor who preach about half of them, don't remember. Like, that's a hard time to just coalescing everything that's been said and thought about, and takes a lot of work.
Yeah, which is why you really want to preach the same thing every week with just some slight modifications.
Right. This is what I've been
You
told.
need to tweak it enough that people don't realize they're hearing the same thing every time. They go, wow, it's just so much variety over there. But the truth is, it's the same exact.
Okay, we only have a few more.
So we already kind of cleared that one up. I think that's done.
What is the role of story in our life? Like telling our story, listening to stories. Like,
yeah, probably. I don't think there's a role for it.
Okay. What am I supposed to do with my life?
Just hurry up and die.
I have a feeling that we should do this every week, where I just read some off and you just
and I just make
you answer
response.
And then we're done. We move to the main topic. And the last one, here we go, is the major audience. Like, so I looked at some data for podcasts, and 88% of podcast listeners, which half of the United States has said they've at least listened to one podcast. Okay. Not Faith Over Breakfast, but podcast. 88% of them say that they are listening for learning. But then guess what? 87% also say we're also listening for entertainment. So it's this like entertainment, learning kind of thing that we go to these.
I think we listen to podcasts because we don't have anybody to hang out with.
Yeah, that's right. So we're just lonely, and people.
And you find a voice that is kind of familiar to you, and you just want to keep hearing it.
And some friends. We find some friends on air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I totally agree.
Or you're lonely, or there's a certain type of talk you want to be having, and the people in your life are having a different kind of talk, and so I was literally doing this up until I walked into this room.
That's right.
Yeah, there's these guys that it's a fairly meaningless and generally annoying commentary about what the Chicago Cubs are doing over the off season, and I keep thinking, why do I keep listening to this?
Andy, I have to say I'm much better than you, because up to this point, I was listening to Scott McKnight on Revelation.
Yeah, see, that's because that's what you want to talk about. I just want to talk about the Cubs all the time, and everybody wants to talk about theology and how do I live my life. Well, the podcast
isn't baseball over?
Yes, exactly. That's what's so crazy about it.
Who won the World Series?
Who won the World Series?
I don't know.
It happened in Phoenix, man.
I don't know.
The Texas Rangers.
The Texas Rangers
I was
won?
there for the final game.
Oh, that's right. This is how much I think about baseball.
No, it's how much you think about me, Eric, which is why you're not fulfilling my needs, which is why I'm listeing to this meaningless drivel about the Cubs.
So you can have your emptiness.
That's why we listen to podcasts. That's the point.
Oh, this is great. I love the January Andy. Let's mark January Andy, because by December Andy's going to be a whole different guy.
February Andy will probably
be pretty different too. Yeah. I like January Andy.
Okay, good.
This was good. I like that.
All right, well, see you later. Yeah.
No, so now, audience, you've heard many of the subjects. This is your opportunity to, I don't know, do something new with Faith Over Breakfast. Subscribe. Hey, we would love to have some subscribers. I figured out that if we have about somewhere between 80 to 100 regular listeners, if just 30 of you would subscribe for $10, that would give us production, hiring someone who can do all the producing for us and all the editing and the posting and all that, and we would be professional.
There you go. Well, apparently this is our first ad break, and we're going to come back after the audience has voted on which one of those topics. And so I just want to say a little shout out for Yogi Tea.
Yogi Tea.
So there are two things in this life that go well with honey, and they're both named Yogi. Yogi the bear and Yogi Tea. Eric has chosen the greater of the two, Yogi Tea.
I don't like honey in my tea, son.
Oh. Gosh, see, another reason I need podcasts is because I don't understand you.
That's true. I mean, I'm an older Gen Xer and you're a cusper, so we have so much.
How do you not like honey and
between
tea?
The two of us in communicating?
Yeah, wow. We should get a third party in here to help.
I really need one.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
all right. So what did the audience choose?
Oh, I don't know.
You were supposed to be thinking about that.
They chose for us to talk about the beginning of the year, and what's on the table for you, man?
What's on the table?
What's
for
on
you?
the table for me? What's the hope and dream for the Faith Over Breakfast podcast?
No, they wanted one of those topics. Those were good topics.
Adopting an AI.
Adopting an AI. Okay, there you go. Yeah, all right. Actually, okay, great. Let's AI it up. Let's
Want to talk about the AI?
Yeah, let's
talk
about
about
AI.
hit the AI.
Okay, AI.
So Chat GPT just is about to open its store.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm aware that AI exists. My most recent engagement with AI was I was Googling. I was thinking about the angels over Christmas, so I was curious if anybody had dropped descriptions of the angels from Scripture into AI and what it came out, and the answer is yes. Lots of people have done that, and there's all kinds of wild images, and I enjoyed that. So that's all I've really thought about with AI lately. So you're going to have all the
here's
the news. Give me the news.
I don't know so much, but the news is just I think it's infiltrating every area of industry.
Yeah.
So much so I was talking to a grad student, PhD student in our church, and he was saying that they tell their students, this is bachelor's level students in biology, that they can use Chat GPT to write their paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did we not mention this last year? I think there was a point where certain schools were resisting that, and others were saying it's going to happen, so we just need to put parameters on it.
Yeah.
Like since AI doesn't. You need to get in and edit it. You're going to need to do footnotes. You're going to need to verify information.
Yeah, you got to learn how to do that. So I have this question because you and I mean, your college education and your master's degrees have been in this era, but I went to college in the late the early 90s, and I was in the social sciences. So you're writing an APA style, and you've got to do all the citing.
Yeah,
but nothing. The software that we're using, Word or whatever it was back then, there was another one which I forget its name. There were many of them, but they don't have any automatic citing for you. They don't build out your footnotes for you. But now all the software, before the big AI, the software itself is starting to make life easier. Yeah. It's like the hammer evolved, right? The word processor is evolving. So the things that were hard for us are now easy for other people, and I don't know.
Like with Bible work, if you're in Logos, you can just copy and paste the citing. It'll give you the citation. You just drop it over.
Well, and Logos is it has everything in one space. Yeah. It can give you 3 commentaries. It can give you both prominent lexicons if you need to look at them, Thayer's and whatever.
Do you use Logos ever?
No, I hate it.
Yeah, I use it. Yeah, and I underuse it. I probably use it at 10% of its capability.
I hate it. It's just that I feel like it's money. It's expensive.
Yeah, I was once gifted the Scholars Library, and all I have to do is upgrade the system every once in a while. So that's part of why I use because
it's never been gifted to me.
Yeah,
it's like what, $1,000.
I'm sure. Yeah, I don't even know.
Last time I looked, it was expensive.
Yeah,
and I don't do it a lot of outside of word searching or word studies or doing some kind of more language stuff. I tend to use books.
Yeah, I like to use books.
Mostly my language stuff is online because it's just easier. You can do a word study so much faster.
Yeah, there's a lot of available resources anyway.
But so there's the resources, but then there's the actual producing of content by a machine.
Right. Yeah, I was listening to it. It was a Christian forecasting website about the new year. Probably what we're attempting to do now to some degree, but they were talking about several topics that they thought were going to be big this year, and one of them had to do with AI, and they were referring to the fact that it's already just getting integrated into everything, things that you don't realize are AI already, when you're typing in your phone and it's predicting the word that's coming up, that's AI. Probably a lot of people already know this. And so it's just becoming integrated into everything, So there you go. That's when I write an article on Medium, it is it is immediately an audio article. I got a thing from Google that they could create an audio book out of your book, and you can choose like out of 500 different voices to read it. But then the trouble is you have to go in and edit in, pauses and things like that. So it actually would be it's still a ton of work, but it's a lot less work than it used to be. So it's kind of just everywhere. But then there are going to be some really difficult things to figure out. I always think about this, and I've probably said this on the podcast before, but my mother, who's 85, has lived through the most intense amount of technological change this world has ever seen. So so when you think about older people and how you feel about them, you need to factor this in. Like my mom, her father was a cowboy who lost everything during the Dust Bowl and migrated west. There were horses involved. There was they lived in a little home with an outhouse, so they didn't have indoor plumbing, any of this stuff. And now she watches her son's church service on YouTube from a distance, interacts with AI on her smartphone, not even knowing what it is, uses Uber and all sorts of insane technologies that are available from a little handheld device in her pocket. Like that radical shift in technological advance has never been experienced in a lifetime like that in history. Like you can look at the big booms, they're nothing like this. The amount of change that group of people had to endure, I think it's even different for us because we generally grew up with technology around. They went from things that had never been dreamed of before to living with extremely advanced versions of them within one lifetime. It's never happened before.
Yeah.
And so AI would be just one of many pieces of that. But this, they were talking about, just people getting used to like the potential, all the ways you have to have your radar up when you're wondering, is that what's real?
Right.
And I think we, even at our age, being kind of 40, 50, we know you have to be thinking about that. And we kind of have some tools to think about it. I think the generation, the older, go a decade up, couple decades up from us, there might be a new awareness of that, but not as many tools on how to deal with it. It's just quite overwhelming. And then the younger generation than us is, that radar is just always there. They're just always assessing things.
Yeah, they are, or they're just not thinking about it at all.
Or it becomes just a lot of background noise.
I mean, in the movie Knives Out, I think like Mark was reminding me that yesterday in the first, 10 minutes, one of the characters says, I read a tweet about your article, the article about you. Mm-hmm. And that's their information about this person, not the article.
The tweet
but
about,
the tweet about the article. Where maybe for you and me, it would be the article. Yeah.
I think it's very rare in my estimation that younger folks, honestly, older folks, even on Facebook and stuff too, seem to exhibit this. But people don't read articles anymore. No. Like I've put some out, and
as a writer of articles,
well, and one of the metrics they show you is views versus reads, and the reason they're doing that, and I'm curious, and I'm sure the information is out there, what they even ask for as far as does that just mean a bit of a scroll, or does that mean that somebody scrolls to the end, or that they slowly scroll to the end? But they're trying to show you that.
Yeah, and it could also.
While a ton of people looked at it,
did they stay on that page for more than 3 minutes?
Yeah,
the time that it took you to read.
Right.
Yeah, that's another way they measure that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how technology shapes everything. I think it changes mission. It changes
of course.
The way we relate. I think the world has become, a little bit more dangerous even than it was 20 years ago because of how much, not dangerous in like violence. Actually, violence.
Well,
violence has gone down in Tucson.
Yeah. Well, and generally across that same prediction show, which was a Christianity Today one. They were talking about actually like back when their parents used to let them ride bikes all over. The crime in America was higher. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely different. But I think it's more dangerous just in the information, what we believe, how it's shaping government, how it's shaping the way you and I relate together, our willingness to engage one another. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, and speaking of changing mission, I feel like there are these two realities, at least this is how it's coming across to me, and you can tell me what you're hearing or thinking. But one is you have to engage technology to some degree because that's where people often are going to engage you first or even just interact with who you are. People, that's it seems as if you disengage with technology, you're not going to have people discover what you're talking about or give you a shot.
You have to be out there.
But then at the same time, especially younger people are very skeptical of what they're hearing out there. And so at some point you have to have almost a very primitive organization that is not technology dependent to disciple. And so it's kind of you have to play these two fields. And that's complicated. It's complicated to know which one's which. Like I've been thinking a little bit about our social media channels or whatever.
Yeah, I've noticed a little bit of your activities.
My activities. The great thing is that I have thoughts that shape them, and I'm glad for that. But it's not me doing that. But but I want it to be there's almost more like a feel that I hope that people grasp that is true, that if they show up to the church they'll experience at a different level, but what I do not enjoy is when there's a feel that's presented digitally and then you show up and it is a different experience. Yeah.
So not just to take a complete right turn on this, I have this theory that if the church truly wants to have an impact on the United States and then the rest of the world, so that the American church, we need to enter into at least a 10, but maybe 20-year program. And this 20-year program is to reduce our foreign mission spending by 75%.
Okay.
I'm
sure that's doable.
Take that foreign mission spending, pull our missionaries out of countries, and take our kids and challenge them to all become school teachers.
Okay.
Elementary and high school, and flood the schools over the next 20 years so that when you go to school, 75% of your teachers are Christians.
Okay.
That will then change the nature, regardless of politics, that will change the nature of education.
Okay.
And when it'll change the tenor of schools. It will change then what kinds of children are coming out of those schools.
I would go
and then
a little...
churches, so then when you're spending your money, churches then all would adopt all of the schools.
Right.
So that when you would say go to Tucson, there isn't a school that a church doesn't represent, isn't present in, isn't tutoring, isn't providing for, isn't engaged in support around this. Then you'll change the United States within a 20-year period.
Yeah. I just want to acknowledge that if I'm an unbeliever hearing that I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like you're trying to take over the world. And then you're also thinking what I'm thinking, which is like, yeah, probably ain't gonna happen.
Well, it's not.
Right.
But it is the way it would work.
So, and I would just, I don't actually totally disagree with that. The way I would say it too would be, since the formation of the Christian life is leading to like, and their views, you might think that just changes your political opinions or whatever, but it actually gives like very deep meaning to everything you do, like a deep set of resources to engage in things like difficult relationship and meaningful, future-oriented work and stuff like that, if done well. Probably not the version of Christianity that you might encounter in a tweet, but if that's true, if like fully formed human beings who are able to function and like commit to long-term servant-like leadership, like if that is good for society, which I and we do believe it is, then that would be a benefit. And I would also say that schools, but also like grassroots community organizations, neighborhood relationships, stuff like that, like would be a huge emphasis. We've got a beloved couple we're sending overseas currently, so I absolutely don't want to diminish that, but I know what you mean. Like there is a thing within churches where it feels very sexy and it feels very exciting, like you're a part of something that matters, to send people overseas to reach unreached people. And it's just extremely evident when you look at the data out there that the most rapidly secularizing society is our own. And secularizing that could mean that there's just multiple viewpoints, but I would say like a post-religious society that doesn't have any cohesion anymore, that doesn't have any shared basis for truth-telling and working together anymore. And so we're sending people off, sometimes with a even harmful approach to life, like one that is not working here.
Right. And I think when you read the New Testament, one of the things that we start thinking is, well, that there's a lot of foreign mission going on because we're moving from Jerusalem outward. Yeah. But in reality, everything is Rome. There is no foreign mission. Everything is Rome for the most part. And wherever you go, you are encountering one level or another of Rome. You go to Ephesus, it's full of, what do you call it? Temples to Roma, and the coins have Nero or have the latest Caesar on them, and there's statues everywhere telling you, this is Rome. Yeah. And I think we've sent missionaries for a long time because we're a Christian nation.
We've spread our Rome.
Yeah. And so I think it might be, if we want to, I think as we've watched schools fall apart and get really bad, we pull our kids out, which I don't have a problem with necessarily, and we put them in Christian schools.
Or homeschool.
And then we wonder why everything keeps crumbling more and more, when really the infrastructure for everything are our children, from kindergarten up. So it's not about going and fighting this. So I think our normal stance is to go fight the school board, fight for these things that we want to have in the schools. No, I think a very biblical mission is go be a teacher. Be as many teachers as possible.
Think about it this way. Like there's a business, say, with a board of 6 people. Yeah. And you have the option of investing in the business and you want to make it work for the better. And so you look at the business and you go, okay, it's got some issues, it's got some brokenness, it's not functioning quite the way it should. In fact, some of its core objectives are a little bit off base. So what is your best path to changing it? You could begin to criticize it. You could, publicly, privately criticize it. Okay. That's not all wrong. There's moments for that. Or you could leave. You could just be like, no, it's not what it should be. I'm going to leave.
Right.
Or you could invest in it. Like think long term and think, what would it take to move this thing in the direction that it ought to move? What type of people, what kind of development would need to happen within the lives and hearts of people? Maybe somebody will need to go. Maybe a big idea will need to change. But if you're investing in it and you're actually putting in your money, your time, your heart, okay, which one of those has the best chance of changing the organization? If the goal is to see transformation, I think invest. I think leaving has pretty much zero chance.
Right.
And critique is very low chance because people are just going to be like, okay, like, wow, you're very antagonistic. So I think the best critique comes when you're an investor, right? Like when you clearly actually care, you matter in the organization. They realize like, wow, we need you. Then when you level the critique, it's like, it matters.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying no critique. I'm not saying there's never a moment to leave.
Sure.
So that's how I would tend to think about impacting a culture. Yeah.
Well, and I like you, I think I grew up in different sized churches.
Right.
So I grew up in the big churches, which had very well organized mission things and very well organized mission messages, right? Foreign missions. And then I grew up in smaller churches that were just trying to support the pastor.
Yeah.
And maybe they had one missionary or they did a few different missionary things, but they weren't giving substantially to those missionaries. Yeah. Now our churches seem to be more inclined to adopt one missionary and try to pour as much support into them as we can.
That's where our mindset is. And we've even said, if they are somebody who was like a person within our community who really felt that this is what they were supposed to do, and we are behind it. And that's Sam and Alex Burns, who are here in town right now. That is very much their story.
Yeah. And so I have in the Christian community seen a well-oiled, well-organized mission to foreign soil.
Yep.
There are boards, there is money.
Tons of money. Yep.
Right? And so, but I don't necessarily see the same well-organized, linked together mission towards the United States. What I see is an apologetics and evangelistic push, right?
Yeah.
We will convince people in the public forum, and we will do crusades, and we will talk about all these different systems like evangelism, explosion, and how you share your faith.
And the apologetics often comes across as critique. I was at an evangelism seminar in Phoenix, and one of the conversations that came up at the table was apologetics. And this little thought came to me. It hadn't really come to me before, but I said at the table, I said, so how do you feel when you feel like there's a quote unquote secular agenda that is sort of being hammered over your head through whether it's a movie or media or a conversation? Do you feel inclined to listen to that? And they were like, at the people at the table, like, no, I hate that. I was like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like, and why do we expect that like other people would be inclined to listen to something that we're not inclined to listen to? So what are you? You're inclined to listen to something when somebody who you trust usually has a different perspective than you, but respects you, loves you, and is willing to kind of continually listen and probably like take a little bit, offer a little bit, or they just consistently live out something that you're like, whoa, that's better than what I'm doing, or something, but when you feel like somebody has an agenda and that they're just trying to get you to cave, that's not very effective.
Right.
That's usually our evangelism apologetic strategy.
Yeah. So I guess to go back to my argument, I actually think that teachers in the public sphere in public school are our primary missionaries, and we should be sending more and more there, and we should be supporting them the way we support missionaries.
Yeah, and the tie with that and AI is evident.
It's so evident because they are using AI to teach now.
Oh, are they? Okay. Yeah. That's the best part about these the true faith over breakfast table conversation is it goes where it goes.
Okay, I will tell you a little bit about ChatGPT.
Okay.
4.0.
4.0.
And its advances, because what's beautiful is it's now built in a search engine.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the AI using Bing to do searches. But it
using Bing?
Yeah, it uses Bing to search.
Oh, I thought Bing was dead and gone.
Microsoft integrated its AI. Anyway, all that to say.
Wait, what about Ask Jeeves?
Ask Jeeves, I don't know anything about
Come on.
I know nothing. You can sit down to ChatGPT and say, okay, so let's take the passage John 3:16. Would you break it down for me in the Greek? And then when you give me a historic perspective on this, it has access to all of the many of the academic books. Right. It does a beautiful job. And so I will test it in the passages that I already know the Greek in pretty well. And it rarely is giving me something it shouldn't be giving me. It's just, it's searching and popping down. It's looking at the lexicons that are available to it online. Well, the thing is, it reads the lexicon way faster than I do.
Probably more effectively.
Yeah, and probably more effectively. So it's lovely if I want an initial breakdown of a word, because it will sit there and say, well, this word is used here in 1 Timothy, and it's used this way, and blah, 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 this passage, and here's how it's used by first century Hebrew, rabbis, and da-da-da-da. And you're like, oh, this is nice breakdown. That would have taken me about an hour to kind of sort, and now I have it in about 5 minutes.
Now, is that good? Is it just to ask about that? Like, is it good
That's
to
the
arrive at answers without contemplation?
Well, I don't know if information has got contemplation.
Well,
it's solving a curiosity for me.
No, for sure. The contemplation, and it's not the worst word, but it may not be the best word. But without having struggled toward it, without having gone on a quest.
Well, here's the thing. I think it helps begin a quest. I always go back to this example. When I was first going into ministry, one of the things I realized in my early 20s is that I knew nothing about church history. Mm-hmm. So I went into the guy who was mentoring me, and I knew he really loved church history. And so I went to his office and I said, hey, I need to begin this process of reading the church fathers, learning more about church history. And so he turns around, and right behind him in his desk, he has 3 bookshelves. Mm-hmm. And he looks at it, he says, on the top bookshelf is all the original stuff of the church fathers. And then he said, the next shelf is all of the people talking about the original, so second source. And he said, and then he handed me a book, and he said, this is where you have to begin, which is a summary of all of that. Mm-hmm. And so somebody did all that work for me.
Yeah.
And then that will build my curiosity if I want to go to the next place. So I'm not just wandering around looking like, well, maybe I should be reading Tertullian.
No.
Maybe I don't care about Tertullian. Maybe I want to read Augustine.
Well, and technologies are never, good or evil. They have potentials in each direction, right? So,
someone does the work for you to get to.
Yeah,
someone's doing work for you.
And I guess I'm wondering about like as less of us are doing the work, what does that do to us? I mean, when I said going on a quest, I thought about a technology like a vehicle.
Sure.
And so, for everybody doing like great road trips, well, that was once inaccessible to you. You could not do that. You had to get on a horse, and you might survive as you go on your quest, or you would walk a long distance, and there were all sorts of ways that you might not be able to go on the quest because of that. You wouldn't have the capability. You'd run out of energy. You'd run out into a wild animal, whatever.
Yeah.
And so the new technology makes an accelerated version of the quest more possible, but also oh no, I have no hat on. Take
a picture of me.
There we go. The other side of that is that you don't observe as much kind of meaningful like you don't, and I think there's a movement among younger people to do more slow observation because it's just utterly lacking in the world. And that gives me hope that some people are investing in that, but a lot of people are not. And I wonder what that does to us to only fast forward into things. Right. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go. All right. Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, with a microphone in front of his face. There. All
awesome. Right. Yeah. So, but I think the argument you could make is you wrote a book. That book is about your travel. It's about your dad.
Yep.
Right? Is it better for me to actually take the journey or read the book? Right?
Well, right. No, and then I guess that's the other thing is you can't take my journey.
Exactly.
So the only way is to read the book. My journey, for that to have been what it was, I actually, not only did I go on a quest, I actually did many times take long walks. Like things that I wrote about, like one time I walked 6 hours down the Oregon coast.
Right.
Tore up my feet because I don't do that enough. And without that, I think even if it's a subtle depth that you might experience reading it, without that walking, that slow work, it's not there. It's not the same.
And if I read a book about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, it's much different than me climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. But I can still learn, right?
It can lead you to want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro or
another mountain,
anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think so it is the story that is developed by the tool that's important. Mm-hmm. So for instance, when I spoke in Colossians chapter 3 and I was speaking on the household codes, I learned a whole bunch because I actually did use ChatGPT to do my language for me.
Yeah.
And then I went on this crazy rabbit trail that that would have never, I probably wouldn't have done it because I didn't have the time to do that
Right.
and produce the sermon. But because it put some stuff in front of me, then I just started flying through the Bible trying to make some connections. So yeah, it created a story for me.
Yeah.
I think what it does, I mean, there are the ups and the downs. The down is that our life is speeding up. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what I'm getting
and
at.
is it healthy to be moving so fast? And I would argue no and yes. Now we have to make a different choice. I think before we might have had to make choices to speed things up.
Right.
Now we have to choose to slow things down.
Which is one of them harder than the other?
Yes, I think slowing down is harder
Feels
if it's
harder.
not part of your life, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're not just getting up and it's a nice, methodical life that's not driven by technology. I mean, we were on vacation for 4 days. And unless we turned our phones completely off, which, by the way, we were using to listen to music with.
Right. But because you do everything with it, you feel like you can't turn it off.
So we're getting calls, we're getting updates.
Yeah.
And unless we turn everything off, we know what's going on. But before, when all we had was an answering machine, we would come home and we're like, have 14 messages on the answering machine. And you're like, wow, that person called us 3 times and left 3 messages.
Imagine before the answering machine when you got home blissfully unaware that anyone, and you heard a month later, yeah, I tried to call you and I couldn't get a hold of you. Well, that's because I was gone. And they go,
Right.
oh, well, I was really wanting to tell you that your other house burned down. And you go, oh, no. Well, guess what? It burned down either way. You know?
Right, exactly. No, exactly. I think these are how technology changes the speed of our life.
We feel like we have to figure out everything now. And this is what, if you work with me, you know I'm always pleading for people not to text everything to everybody. Everything is not emergent. Everything doesn't need to be said right now. Like, is there any, that's my little inner push to just be like, I don't want information popped in front of my face unless it is immediate. If you are struggling, and then okay, text me. But if you want to get a report on something, then email it and wait. It's okay.
Yeah.
But that's like this inner struggle within me. That's like the immediacy drives. I've had. Yeah, to be honest, I think about the first week of the year because things kind of ramp back up.
Oh yeah, it's definitely that way.
And even at
a lot of administrative ramping,
and then at the end of the year, this past year, certain people want everything done by the 31st. Whether there's a discernible need for that or not is hard to know. But there's something about milestones, and so there's been a hecticness to communication. Like, oh, hey, this is starting up. This is starting up. This is ending. This is ending. And there's part of me that's like, hey, go away.
Yeah. Well, and for the first time in a very long time at the village, we had the Christmas Eve service, which is our candlelight service, which is normal to only have an evening service. But then we decided to only have an evening service for New Year's. Everything is shut down. So now we've shut everything down. Plus we've shut basically two services down. And you start feeling like, are people going to come back? Are people going to believe this is it's interesting that when the busyness goes away, you begin to think, am I significant? Are we connected? Because we're so used to all of the freneticness of everything. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it feels like you're not doing anything if it's not hectic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. These are our values. Well, that was a great podcast. I don't know if you have anything else to say.
I just want a break, I just want to go get it. Just want to listen to some podcasts, text some people. Wait, is that a break?
Andy would like to. So I feel like to end this podcast, we should go back to the beginning and the Cubs.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And can you just tell me, as a person who knows little about baseball, how did the Cubs do, and what's your hope for the Cubs this coming year?
No, I can't. They didn't make the playoffs, and they are the only team in Major League Baseball that hasn't made a significant trade or acquisition over the offseason.
So my thought here is that they're not going to do well this next year.
Well, you might be wrong.
Yeah.
That's why
you just can't.
That's why you get hooked.
Yeah,
you just can't.
Gotcha.
They're either geniuses that are playing their cards so well that no one knows what's coming, or they all just went on really long, expensive vacations, and they forgot that they wanted to win games, and they just have no idea what they're doing. Yeah, who knows? Or
have the Cubs ever been known to be geniuses in their planning and acquisitions?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the journey of the Chicago Cubs is that they, in a way, there is a level of genius. So over the years, they have generally not been a good baseball team. If you look at the data, they won the World Series in 2016. It'd been over 100 years.
Right.
And so they brought in a pro who fixed them in a way. And then he got promoted up to being a leader in Major League Baseball in general. But they have one of the hugest fan bases in all of baseball.
Right.
So if you're able to build one of the largest fan bases in all of baseball while also not being good, you might be a genius. And the way they did this was they created a mystique around their old ballpark. They offered their games. They were the first, I believe the first team, but for a long time, they
could
allowed
only see the Cubs.
Because
all over the United States,
because they didn't charge anything for it, and they were criticized like, how you're gonna give away the rights to your games. Well, so yeah, if you grew up, and this is part of why I'm a Cubs fan, is because
you didn't live in Chicago.
I didn't live in Chicago. My best friend and his family were from Chicago, and so, but because WGN was the only outlet showing baseball on a regular basis, it was, and I loved baseball. I liked the A's, but I can't watch the A's, so I would watch all these Cubs games because it was the only one I could watch. And that is why there's Cubs fans everywhere, because they did that. And so what seemed like a stupid strategy turned out to be genius. And guess who was behind all that? The owner of Wrigley Gum. He probably knew a thing or two about marketing.
He probably did.
And which is why it's called Wrigley Field. And so there's some genius.
Yeah, no, that sounds like there's some genius behind all of that.
And then you create this drama because everybody wants to win. So you've got these fans that are mad, but they're sort of committed. So mad and committed there's probably a level of genius to that, which is what I don't stoke enough at Mission Church. I need them to be
mad and committed.
Mad.
Well, honestly, so just to close here, I'm not a Cubs fan and not a baseball fan, but I am a Browns fan.
Oh,
Browns are going to the
Browns.
playoffs since I don't know, early 2000s or something like that. It's been a very long time, and we have a good team, and we got the old quarterback Flacco.
Oh yeah.
So I understand, but guess what Browns fans are? They're always losing. You never win anything, and they're mad and committed.
Yeah, huh?
So maybe this is the thing.
There's something to it.
We would love villagers and mission people to be mad and committed.
A little more mad, a little more committed. Yeah.
That will now forget healing the city. It's the village. A little more mad, a little more committed.
Yeah.
Mission Church. A little more mad, a little more committed.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's our hope. Oh, thanks, Andy.
Amazing.
You've been listening to Faith Over Breakfast with Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. Please share us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.